All right, it's time now for CMSC Corner, which is our monthly segment in which we chat about the world of portable coordinate metrology. Now, this is close tolerance, large volume test and measurement, alignment, and assembly processes, which are essential to industries such as aerospace, automotive, power generation, satellites, and many, many more. Well, today we're joined by Daniel Sawyer, and Daniel is the group leader of the Dimensional Metrology Group at NIST. He also acts as the liaison to presenters of white papers at the Coordinate Metrology Society's annual conference. So, Daniel Sawyer, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Mike and Derek. Very nice to be here with you.
Well, thanks for joining us as well, Daniel. We're happy to talk to you today. Well, let's start off with maybe some general information about the technical papers that I mentioned. What kind of research projects do these generally cover? For example, what kind of papers were presented last year at CMSC?
Well, there's a couple of interesting papers. I've been coming to the CMSC since I was a kid in the 90s, and I remember at that time they had a technology called a coherent laser radar, and it was about $500,000, and it was an instrument that had some special applications. But over the times of the decade that has passed, now last year at the CMSC, there are actually papers presented where these coherent laser radars are actually used as probes on robots. Now they're part of subsystems as opposed to whole metrology systems. So those kinds of new applications are interesting, and it's in these instances with like the CMSC conference that you get, the rare occasion to see what your colleagues are doing with these technology tools.
And Dan, I also understand that, and I've seen myself, that very often these aren't just technology papers, how does this technology work, but very often they're kind of application specific, right? Kind of case studies on how a particular technology was used to solve a problem.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the case studies run the gamut, and I think that's a good thing. You look at case studies for automation to improve manufacturing efficiency, but also what's becoming more and more popular, these instruments are being used by archivists to capture the 3D content of national treasures like artifacts in museums for historical preservation. That function is also an important part of our community and something that we actually provide an opportunity for folks who work in that industry to present here as well.
And how do you guys go about selecting the papers for the conference each year?
We have a team that's part of the EC. There's 3 of us, and we take all the papers, we review all the abstracts, and we send them to the EC community. And folks look at it for the technical content. We do try to focus on knowledge transfer and stay away from commercial papers as best as we can. There's lots of opportunities for the manufacturers of these instruments to talk to the potential customers at their booth, but we really are concentrating on educating the folks who are in this industry to really add value to the businesses that they work in.
And you mentioned the EC, that's the executive committee for those that don't know. They're really the steering committee of the Coordinate Metrology Society, the folks behind the CMSC. And I believe that now the EC has now accepted all the abstracts for the year. So what, if you can, maybe give us some highlights from some of the projects that folks will see at CMSC 2017?
Well, I want to provide a simple caveat. All of the papers I think this year are great. So I'll talk about a couple in particular. I don't want any of the people who spent their time putting together some content for this conference to be upset. But I am looking forward to a particular paper that describes measuring as-built components on the International Space Station. And this was an activity that was required to be done by using existing photographs of the ISS in space and basically reconstructing critical dimensions of a fitting so that they could do some repair work. I just think these kinds of applications are really interesting. They exist inside of NASA, and if it weren't for these kinds of opportunities, we'd never get to be able to share and join and talk about them.
And that leads to a good comment that people should know. I mean, what CMSC does covers a lot of different industries. I mean, many people mostly think of automotive, aerospace, but satellite's a big one. Power generation, antenna. I mean, there's a lot of different industries and sectors that are involved in this type of work. Is that correct, Daniel?
Oh, absolutely. And like I had mentioned before, archivists are actually using these instruments quite a bit. The auto space industry, we're seeing a lot of applications. Also in particle accelerators, you have to do very precise alignment of the magnets that are used in there. So it's an important part of basic research as well as industrial applications.
And I think another thing that I really think is interesting when I've been to some of these presentations of papers is it's not always how we used, coherent layers of radar or, an optical tracker or structured white light or whatever. Sometimes some of these solutions involve, okay, well, we used a laser tracker for this part, and then we used a portable arm for that, and we combine the data from each. Sometimes it takes multiple technologies in order to solve a problem. And that to me is what's really interesting, is it's not necessarily one solution always fits all. Sometimes you've got to kind of dovetail these different pieces together. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, absolutely. I work in the nation's laboratory, so we don't oftentimes get out into the manufacturing environment to see how people are using these things. But nowadays, measurement challenges in the manufacturing floor require combinations of many different types of metrology instruments with their unique characteristics and capabilities to be tied together. We're seeing that happen more and more often, and just seeing it in practice and looking at some of the innovative solutions that the practitioners are coming up with, our colleagues, is really, really exciting and a nice part of this talking about at the conference.
And again, as you mentioned, you're with NIST, the nation's laboratory. And NIST obviously plays a pretty big role in facilitating knowledge transfer between government and industry and academia. So generally speaking, what do you see as maybe the key goals for these types of exchanges? I mean, is it better efficiency? Is it greater innovation? Something else? What do you think about that?
Well, NIST is actually a part of the Department of Commerce, and I spend a lot of time, talking to folks about that. We're really interested in helping businesses work more efficiently and stay commercially competitive. So my particular group doesn't spend a lot of time on knowledge transfer, but primarily we spend a lot of effort on developing documentary standards that describe how these new technologies perform, so that young engineers who have to make decisions about buying very expensive new technology have some performance data that helps make these decisions easier. We call that basically helping them make informed capital investments in equipment. That's really important part of the Department of Commerce and where we focus. My team is responsible for leadership of documentary standards that are responsible for buying and selling and warranting hundreds of millions of dollars in dimensional metrology products that are bought and sold each year.
And Dan, we don't get to talk real often with people who work for NIST. Every time I read about stuff that's going on in NIST, it's a huge organization. There's a lot of stuff going on. I just think it's really fascinating. So, a question I just want to throw to you is, what is exciting for you? What's interesting to you? What do you get out of working for basically a huge lab where you can study all sorts of stuff?
Well, I will tell you, there are things that are benefit to business that just are outside the domain of profitability for private industry. So folks who build laser trackers, they're making really neat absolute distance measuring devices that are really, really accurate. But how do you test them? How do you find something more accurate so you can determine whether or not the instruments that you're building are actually as accurate as you think they are? Well, by satisfying the needs of the community, and in NIST, we can actually build those types of facility, provide access to manufacturers who are building the next to technology to really high accuracy measurements, so that they can provide proof of concept and get their instruments to the consumers quickly. So there really is the time to spend to really, really understand, refine our measurement processes, and add value with unique measurements that help manufacturers innovate.
So kind of be able to provide the tools for the advancement of this technology, maybe in a way that an individual company might not be able to, because maybe they don't have the resources or the wide variety of expertise, that type of thing?
Absolutely, and we make that readily available to for all the manufacturers to use. Some cases, these are special measurements, but in my laboratory, we have a long interferometric beam line that is used to test the range capabilities in laser trackers. So manufacturers send their golden trackers to my facility, and we check it against that against that very accurate beamline? Well, you have to have a facility for that. So most manufacturers wouldn't actually have the resources to do that, although they're investing in that now. But having had that, we were able to provide value to the industry and help manufacturers build better products. So it really is just building best in the world, unique capabilities that are needed to test the new instruments before they go to market.
Well, Dan Sawyer, that was really interesting stuff
know,
there.
good stuff.
Mean, we could talk about this all day. Thanks so much for joining us on this month's CMSC Corner. We're going to see you at CMSC this July in Utah. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you then.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Dan.